Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here. I know there are a lot of bills, a lot of things to cover. Before I even offer any comments, we are going to begin by playing a brief video which captures why we are here today. So if you can hit play on that, please. For anyone who doesn't know, that is a handgun that has been converted into essentially a machine gun using what's often referred to as a trigger activator or Glock switch. And we're here today with the support of numerous law enforcement agencies and individuals to call on the legislature to pass a bill that simply mirrors federal law to ban these on the state level. As you can see from the video, they are incredibly dangerous, they're incredibly lethal, and they are incredibly hard to control. They have absolutely no place in our streets. They are a danger to the community. They are a danger to law enforcement. So what we want to do is make sure that our district attorneys in Alabama, that our police and sheriffs in Alabama have another tool, another way to deter and hold people accountable for using these very, very dangerous weapons. Here with us today, I'm very thankful we have the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, we have the District Attorneys Association, we have the Sheriff's Association, we have some local police, and then the Fraternal Order of Police are fully in support. Their leadership is at a conference today, so they're not here physically, but they're certainly here in support. So far, this bill has passed out of the House Judiciary Committee with bipartisan unanimous support. We have a companion bill in the Senate where I've gotten word in the Judiciary Committee that they would bring that up, and that there would be support for that. So what we need to do now is make sure that both in the House and Senate that these bills move quickly and urgently. Every day counts. Every day that these are still not illegal in Alabama poses a threat to the public and again a threat to law enforcement. So we are here again to call on the legislature to pass HB 36 and then the Senate companion bill, which was just introduced. And the last thing I'll say before turning it over to some colleagues in law enforcement is we often hear people say that they back the blue, they pay lip service to saying they support law enforcement. We can put those words into action by passing this legislation. We pass all sorts of bills here every day, and this is one, though, that will really make a big impact on enhancing public safety. It's not going to stop every act of violence. It's not going to stop every shooting. We know that. We know it starts at home. It starts with individuals, but to the extent we can pass laws that make things a little safer, that's why we're here as lawmakers, and we're here to pass laws. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Burkett with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency.
Thank you, Representative. And again, I truly couldn't agree with everything that you said. And so on behalf of Secretary Hal Taylor and Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, we're here to agree with everyone standing behind me that these devices, and that's what it really is a device that takes a handgun and turns it into something that it's not actually supposed to be, okay? And so that's what this really goes back to. So just like he said, there may be things and maybe times we can't always agree about everything, but there are moments to where we can come together as prosecutors, as law enforcement officers, irregardless if it's the sheriff's office, if it's the police department, if it's state law enforcement, everybody in our division, we can all agree that we want to ensure that people go home every day. So that's what this is. It's about public safety. It's about saving lives. And it's because, again, we enforce the laws. We don't necessarily make the laws. So we're really happy when we find representatives that are willing to work with us, again, to just simply save lives. And that's what this goes back to. This is a step in the right direction because things change. When somebody manufactured a handgun, this was never intended to be a part of that platform. So what it does And for those that don't know, and I'll share this, sometimes a handgun can be a hard device, weapon, whatever you want to call it, platform to actually manipulate and put rounds on target anyway. So what this does, this takes that platform, handgun, weapon, again, whatever you want to call it, and makes it extremely inaccurate. So that's why it's so dangerous, because even for us in law enforcement, we have to account for every single round, right? Every time we take this weapon out of our holster, we have to be responsible for every round that we send down range. And so this takes a handgun and creates a situation where the user is going to be extremely reckless in the way they discharge the rounds. So again, I think we can all agree on this. Thank you, Representative. Thanks to everybody coming behind me. And again, on behalf of Secretary of Law Enforcement, Hal Taylor, we appreciate everybody's time and again for sharing this. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Sheriff Derek Cunningham from Montgomery.
Well, Representative, I really want to thank you for this because we needed another tool. I mean, every single day we go out here, our guys and girls go out to stop people, apprehend people that have these devices. We didn't have a tool. We didn't have a tool that we could put them in jail. Now we're sending a message back that if you're caught with this weapon, you will go to jail. And this is what we need, and this is the message we need to send back to our communities, is that if you're caught with a Glock switch or with one of these devices on your weapon, you will go to jail. And I know we have federal laws out there, but that process takes a little time. What we did now, we took that time away, and with your help, we're able to now go out and to effect an arrest. And I think that's what our communities want. Our communities want to see us remove elements that are out there in our communities. There's using a device such as this. It's uncontrollable. It ain't meant for target shooting. It's meant for spraying, and it's meant for killing. So now, if you're caught with one, you're going to jail. And so we appreciate that, and this is a good message that we're sending back to the community.
And last, we have District Attorney Darrell Bailey, also from Montgomery.
Representative Ensler, thank you so much for this bill. On behalf of the Alabama District Attorneys Association, we fully support the efforts of a representative in bringing this legislation forward. Right before I came up to the stage this afternoon, I received a text that we had another shooting in Montgomery, where multiple gunshots were fired and someone was actually shot. I don't know yet if it was a Glock switch involved, but experience has shown me that a lot of the shootings that we're having in Montgomery, in the city of Montgomery, involve the Glock switches. And we want to make sure that we use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that these violent criminals are removed from the streets for as long as we can remove them. And this is just good, common sense legislation that I think we can all agree on. I don't see how anybody could disagree that this is not good legislation. So we appreciate your efforts in making sure that not only Montgomery is safe, but the rest of the state of Alabama with this legislation. So thank you on behalf of the citizens of the state of Alabama, and the Alabama District Attorneys fully support your efforts.
Great. Well, anyone else up here? Great. All right. Well, with that, we'll take questions, whether for me or any of the individuals that just spoke.
My question, I guess maybe Aaliyah or the sheriff, whoever feels most qualified and wants to talk, but from my understanding, this is already banned on the federal level. So how does this further assist Alabama law enforcement by having a state ban?
It's banned on the federal level, but that goes with an indictment. So that's a process. That it takes us a little time for us to be able to get that done. You just don't arrest them right then and charge them federally. So with us, this is a tool for us to be able to effect an arrest on the scene, on the spot, and that's going to send a message back to others that have them, that if they know that law enforcement is stopping a vehicle, or we're stopping a subject that has one of these devices on his weapon in his possession, we can put you in jail.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly add on to that, with what I've heard from federal prosecutors, they're stretched thin, they have large caseloads, they can only take on so many cases. So certainly when local law enforcement throughout the state find these, right now they can refer them to federal prosecutors, and then the federal prosecutors decide whether or not they can take on that case. So this just elaborates who's able to prosecute those cases. And also from a deterrent standpoint, the hope is that if individuals know that there's also the potential of a state charge, that they'll, in the first place, not possess one of these or use them, but to the extent that they do, then the chances of them being held accountable are that much more likely when there's both a federal offense to charge with and or a state one. Any other questions?
Yeah, can y'all explain where the Glock switches are coming from?
Yeah,
Whoever?
Well, so one of the things about this device, and again, anybody can feel free to step in here, but you can actually make it with a 3D printer. So that's one of the things that makes this really unique, and for us in law enforcement, really hard to be able to identify, because it's coming from a lot of different places. You understand what I'm saying? This isn't a situation like maybe it's some type of drugs or narcotics where, hey, we can identify a nexus and then establish, a way to go and stop this coming from a certain place, or, there's a distribution chain for it. This is something that basically anybody, and especially you can get on the internet, and with a 3D printer, you might be able to manufacture and figure out how to do this yourself. So that's why I think this is really important, because again, handguns were never meant to be manipulated and used in this way to begin with. So that's what it really goes back to.
I had a quick follow-up question. Is it just the Glock switch, or does this legislation affect other type of illegal weapons modification? I'm not familiar with all of them, but like bump stocks or other type of modifications, or is this just limited to just that Glock switch?
Yeah, great question, and especially for the media, to be abundantly clear, this just deals with modifications to handguns. So this does not deal with bump stocks that are used on rifles. There's a separate bill, unrelated. This is simply that modifications on handguns. Again, the terms that are thrown out are Glock switch, trigger activator. I'm sure there are some others, but this is just dealing with turning that handgun into a machine gun. It doesn't deal with any other firearms, and it also doesn't infringe on anything that's allowed under federal law. So any modifications that are permitted under federal law, this bill clarifies that this would not in any way change what's already allowed. It's just, again, saying exactly what federal law says. Yes.
how prevalent are these Glock switches in it, and over what period of time has this emerged as a real problem? Is this something that's just popped up over the last couple of years, or?
Yeah, and I'll let law enforcement speak more to it, but from the numbers that I've seen in some counties, by the count of law enforcement, they've increased in the last year or two by as much as 300%, if not more. So they've really proliferated in recent years. But again, we'll defer to law enforcement on some of those numbers or how prevalent they are.
Well, I would say right here locally, in the past couple of years, we've really started seeing an increase of them being discovered on handguns. But what's so unique back before the past couple of years, a lot of times you were getting weapons off of people, and you didn't even know what you were looking at. That's how new it is to us in law enforcement. We had to go take classes to be able to see what we're looking at, to know that weapon had been altered. So just by looking at that weapon, if you don't know what you're looking at, and you're not a firearms expert, you probably won't even know that it has a switch on it or it's been modified. So we all in law enforcement had to be trained on what to look at, which is really a good thing for us in law enforcement, because if you get somebody out there and they pull one out and you don't know what you got, and you can't just say you may have a misfire, but if you do have a misfire, that's a major misfire, because once you squeeze that trigger, you're talking about several rounds, multiple rounds coming out of that weapon. So this is something that we had to be trained on, and now you're starting to see more and more of this training going around just about every state, due to the fact that you need to know what you're looking at. You need to know if that weapon has been modified or not. And sometimes you can't just look at it because of the 3D printing devices. It looks so unique and it looks like it's just part of that weapon. So this is something that we're starting to see more of, but in the past couple of years it's really been brought to our attention, and you're starting to see more of it.
Any other questions? All right, well with that, thank you all for being here, and again, thank you to all of our law enforcement. Obviously they have a lot on their hands, so to take their time out means a lot, and you know, the best thing we can do again is make sure that the legislature passes these bills and gives another tool for law enforcement to help enhance public safety. Thank you all.
You.